Is the Pac-12 one of the next big banks to collapse in this country? We'll discuss that and more in today's show. I'm Josh Neighbors of Locked On Big 12. Spencer McLaughlin is of Locked On Pac-12. We're doing our weekly meetings. We'll done some realignment stuff. When I ask Spencer about comments made by the San Diego State athletic director about, hey, it's going to be the Big 12 with the Pac-12, kind of a Captain Obvious statement. But also want to get some thoughts about Big 12 Mexico. I have my Hawaiian shirt on because Uncle Brett is packing the bags. He's taking the family. We're loading up the jet and we're going to go to Mexico. So we'll talk about Big 12 Mexico as well. And then some questions about what the other three conferences can do to try and catch up with the Big Ten, really just the SEC, let's be honest about it, about winning championships. And I know
I don't know. Ohio State looked pretty good against Georgia.
They did, but they didn't win, and they have not won in 8 years now. So, and also Clemson has won some, but they look like they might not be as Clemson as normally Clemson is. So we'll see about that. But we'll have some thoughts on that front. So first, want to ask you, Spencer, about the comments that we saw over the course of the weekend. I'm totally forgetting that. Yeah, the athletic director's name.
The athletic director of San Diego State, not the president.
Yes,
Adela De La Torre.
I'll find this now. But anyway. He says over the course of the weekend, John David Wicker says that it's either going to be the Big 12 or the Pac-12. We're just kind of going to wait and see. My big thought was obviously the preference would be the Pac-12 because of geography and whatnot, and they're going to be taking a lesser rate. But also, they'd be pretty valuable for the Big 12 because the Big 12 has no West Coast presence yet. So maybe that is part of a negotiation. Obviously, they're not going to be a full share school from where they're coming from, but maybe that is a negotiating thing, a chip, I guess, if you will, to kind of maximize their value. Although it's going to be tough to push the Pac-12 up. So I think it was an interesting comment just to see the athletic director of a school be like, yeah, we're either going to one of these two conferences. What were your thoughts about, seeing a comment like that?
Well, first of all, I think the Pac-12 has the same chance of collapsing as the U.S. government, and there are some people who are more worried about that right now than others
The banks
in the country for various reasons. But I, for one, am not too concerned about the institution crumbling like that, either one of them. But I think it makes a lot of sense if you're San Diego State, and I think that they are already kind of acting like a Pac-12 school would, in that the Big 12 has made it very clear that they are interested, that they would like to have them over to their dinner party. And they're saying, if we don't get invited to this other party that we'd really like to go to, that we'd prefer to go to, then yeah, I guess we'll come down and go to your party. Because if we really wanted to go to your party and we thought that you had better food, better ambiance, better people there, then we would just go to that party. But we actually like this one over here. So that's the one that we're kind of waiting out and holding our breaths for. And we are into the month of May, as I think we all remember at this point in time. I personally get confused on dates and times on literally a daily basis, but we are into the month of May. So theoretically, Josh, we could be just a few weeks away. We could be a couple weeks away. I, for one, am relieved we've stopped all the Pac-12 media deal is in its final stages sort of talk, because there was no deadline on that. Because they'd say like, oh no, it's, we're almost done. We're getting close to getting the deal there. And then they wouldn't have the deal. But what exactly is almost done? What is final stages? Because when there's no clarity on that, the president, if asked about it later, who made such remarks, and there were a couple, could go back and say, well, we were in our final stages. To me, that meant that we were going to get it done in the next 1 to 2 months and whatnot. So I'm kind of glad that I've been able to talk more about spring football and that sort of stuff on my Pac-12 show. And I think that is kind of what's in right now, because there isn't really anything new, right? I think on the media rights front, there's nothing new to reveal. There's just kind of the same general speculation, a framework, the predictions and guesses about what the dollar figures are going to be. But I think at the end of the day, Apple appears to be still someone that is looking to get involved in the Pac-12 bidding rights, and what cable partners are going to be there. Looks like ESPN and somebody else, but you never know if somebody else could emerge. And is there going to be a new person, or is there going to be someone who they get back to the table who previously said, someone like Fox that they didn't want in, or could CBS get into the fold because they've actually got a primetime opening now that the Big Ten deal or the SEC deal doesn't have the same time windows, as I understand it, as they did previously. So there's a primetime slot that's available there. Would CBS want the Pac-12 there? I don't know. But I think all of that is just kind of getting figured out. And I think we're now kind of in the space of, we're just going to let this thing play out, because I think we've exhausted, at least for my money, Josh, all the speculative options and frameworks and dollar figures that could possibly come out of this thing.
Yeah, I didn't, so on the San Diego State part of this, I didn't read it like that. I think geographically it just makes more sense for them in the Pac-12. Like that's not
Very much
really
so.
much of a debate, but there is a geographical argument for like why it's additive to the Big 12. But I think for them, they're waiting because like many folks, like they want to see the Pac-12 deal, right? They want to see what that looks like. And their piece of the pie is not already carved out. So there is much more of a, like, what does it look like? How much could we actually get? If take an example, Arizona, right? I don't think we're going to get a revenue share and revenue split in the Pac-12. It does not appear to be heading that direction, at least.
An unequal share, you mean?
Yeah, unequal share, right? Yeah,
I would tend to agree with that.
Yes, I don't. It's not worked. It's not worked well before, and a lot of folks talk about it. But like, if you don't have to give up more money, why would you do it? And so a lot of these schools won't do that. So I think that San Diego State is like legitimately, we have to figure out who is offering, who's going to offer how much. I think the Big 12 understands there's probably a standing offer from them, but I'm not sure if the dollar figure number is worked out yet. It's contingent on what the Pac-12 gets and what they can offer a new member school, such as a San Diego State. All of that stuff has not yet been ironed out. So I thought it was a much more open-ended answer, being like, we'll go both directions, but they're like Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. It's because they have to wait to see what the offer is. But I didn't find this to be public posturing. This is legit. Like, they are going to be in a Power 5 conference. And I think it's, I think they deserve to be.
They're completely ready to do so. Not just because their men's basketball team was literally in the national championship game this season, but you talk about their new stadium, you talk about what they bring as a university, you talk about their geography, you talk about fan support, program tradition. And by the way, their football team had a down year in 2022, but go back and look at the last 6-7 years of San Diego State's record against Power 5 institutions. It is pretty darn good. They beat Utah in 2021, the year the Utes won the Pac-12, right? When they got off to that 1-2 start, one of those games was a loss in San Diego to the Aztecs. So I think they are more than ready to be at the Power 5 level. And I think once they get into a big conference, which I suspect will be the Pac-12, they're going to have a chance, I think, to win games pretty quickly. Because if you look at, I think this conversation can wait until, stuff is formally announced, but you're talking about dollar figures and location and community support. I think you can make the case they are above certain existing Power 5 schools right now in the Pac-12 and in the Big 12, because they are an institution that clearly wants to do this. They want, as on a university level.
Big 12 schools, I'd push back on that. I mean,
you don't think San Diego State, that just built a big, shiny, fancy new stadium, has at least comparable money to Iowa State or Oklahoma State?
Comparable money? Well, they just built a new stadium. That's great, but all these fan bases, that they have like nice, stadiums as well. I mean, I'm not saying the ones in Ames are fantastic, but like the infrastructure.
Yeah, but if you're comparing, if you look at San Diego State and think about, whether you're talking NIL or coaching salaries or revenue, all that sort of stuff, and compare it to an Oregon, or compare it to TCU off the national championship run, even at this point in time, it's not going to, or compare it to a Washington, or compare it to Stanford if they were to go all in, then you see a big gap there. But if you look at the rest of the conferences here, I don't think there's there's a margin.
Iowa State has kept. Iowa State has Matt Campbell, who is one of the hottest coaches in the country.
Oh, I love Matt Campbell.
They were able to keep him there, though. So financially, it's not like this is some. It's I think Big 12 schools have the resources. I would say, if you want to say that San Diego State football is in a better spot than Kansas football, sure. I mean, like, that's a lot of
great example. But that's my point.
That's not.
They're not going to. They're not going to join out either Power 5 conference, whether it's the Big 12 or the Pac-12. And I don't think football wise they would jump in and immediately be a bottom dweller.
Yeah, I think I would tend to say they'd be towards the bottom of the Big 12, and I think they'd be towards the bottom of. They would be, yeah, they would be. They had what they had. The Big 12 had like 8 teams make bowl games last year, and I know San Diego State
had 6 teams in the top 25, but San Diego State is still when they are good. By the way,
sure.
I'm not saying like if you made the jump year one, they're suddenly a top 4 team in either conference, but I don't think they're automatically going to go in and just be in last
Oh
place. Like
no, I think
even
they have the ability to be.
like even with all the talent Colorado and Coach Prime have added this offseason, if they played San Diego State this year, I think that's at least a competitive football game.
I agree with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying, but that's also Colorado. I mean, they're over under on the win total is like what, 3.5?
3.5 right now. Yeah.
Right. So it's like it's still a crippled football program. It's still trying to make their way back up.
It is. But I think
That's why I say hey, they're better than Kansas.
I think they'd be able to go in with a solid floor, whereas other programs like if UNLV got added to the Big 12 or the Pac-12, that team is in last place right away. Right.
Yes.
Like if a shocker of shocker were to come in, it would be UNLV, or if you added Rice or somebody like that. That team is going to the bottom of the conference and going to have to fight and claw its way out. And San Diego State doesn't have that. That's the point that I was making with the Aztecs there.
All right, quick word from our sponsors. Built Bar. Go to built.com today. It's built.com. You guys can find the amazing taste of Built Bar in those places. Also, Sam's Club and Walmart. Sam's Club has the big variety packs, 13. Walmart's got the 4-pack. So, if you want to go small, sure, but I'm more of a go big or go home person. So you get those variety packs, right now at Sam's Club. Once again, Walmart, Sam's Club, 2 places you can go. They're healthy. They're amazing. They taste very good. Spencer and I talked before. What's the puff that you like? What's your favorite?
The brownie batter puff.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Those things are killer.
Yeah, the calories, not too high the
killers.
calories, tons of protein, covered in 100% real chocolate. And the thing about Built Bar is nice is they're kind of multifaceted. You can do it before a workout, do one after a workout. You can do one as dessert too. You can do one as breakfast. So they do serve multiple purposes and actually like functional multiple purposes.
For me, they serve as a little energy boost in the middle of a golf round.
Definitely the sugar intake, right? Get the protein intake. It's all
not
good.
A lot of sugar, mostly there for the protein.
Right. Just a little bit of both. That's why it's why it functions very well. It's again built.com, Sam's Club, Walmart, the places you can go. All right. So Big 12 Mexico, it looks like it's being kicked around, and I think they're going to end up doing it. It looks like the plan is for 2024, 2025 hoops games to be there and football to be there. So I think they want to do basketball next year and then football the following year. I forget the actual schedule of this. The reason I bring this up is I don't think this is some overwhelmingly really big draw type thing. I will say this for Arizona State and then particularly Arizona, I don't think this can hurt in terms of like appeal, right? Tucson is 1 hour from the Mexico border. So it would not, like, if you were to say, hey, folks in Arizona, will you pick a, power? I mean, I think it's probably the closest Power 5 school to Mexico. Maybe San Diego State might be number 2, right?
I need to look at a
but
map of the United States.
an hour is about as close as you can get, right? I know UTEP is on the border, but they're not a Power 5 school. So, not saying this is a bargaining chip, but do you think that if you're in Arizona, like this is something that you'd be like, you know what, that not bad. Like, hey, Arizona versus Kansas and Mexico City, that's not unappealing.
Are you saying as a bargaining chip to try to get them to join the Big 12? Just
another reason why the conference might be appealing to them.
I don't think that's moving.
No, hold on. No, let's be honest about this. The ability to play the Kansas Jayhawks in what would be obviously a premier game. They might send College Game Day down. They probably would. But like they're talking right now about Kansas and Houston. If Kansas and Houston play a basketball game in Mexico City, that is going to be a big deal. That's going to be very well covered. It's going to be good publicity.
I mean, they play games in Hawaii now. They play games on an Air Force carrier. Arizona doesn't need to join the Big 12 to play big time games. Kansas plays
Houston and Mexico City. So let's just say it's middle of February and they're 2 of the top 10 teams in the country, which, let's be honest, that happened this year would have been the case on a Saturday night. Like that's not something that, hey, this is a cool event.
No, it's absolutely cool, but I don't think that I would be shocked if Robert Robbins, the Arizona president, has even heard of this thing. I
disagree with that. That is not true. He definitely
he's probably heard of it in the same way that you and I have heard about it. He read about it. Was like, oh yeah, that seems pretty cool. I'm sure
Brett Yormark is letting him know about some of the information on this. Obviously not.
I don't think the idea. Look, first of all, I like the idea of playing neutral site games in cool locations. But that's something that you do as an extra kicker when you already have your conference figured out, or just something you decide as a university that you want to do. That's not altering their stance on realignment and whether or not the Big 12 is more appealing.
but it also goes to the point that look at the Big 12. They're actually trying to figure out, like, and this can get feed into something else we're about to talk about, but for the other conferences who are not the Big 10 and the SEC and partially not the ACC, the ACC is obviously once again very weird because of their contract situation. But you have to find ways to build a brand and also try to be more competitive and make some extra money and all those kinds of things. And the Big 12 is taking strides in that direction. It's because they've got the time, the ability to do that. The Big 12, the Pac-12 rather, got caught by the Big 12, the way the Big 12 jumped in the TV negotiation situation. And the Big 12 has been able to solve problem to problem and also create good buzz for themselves with the forward momentum. And Brett Yormark, the Pac-12 has just really been mired in like, we want to do stuff, but we can't because we don't have a TV contract.
Well, the Pac-12 also is is earlier in the process of figuring out how to respond after losing two huge brands in the Big 12. The Big 12 announced that Oklahoma and Texas were leaving in 2021, right?
Yeah, but the Pac-12 was in the television. They were at the TV table before,
right? But USC and UCLA hadn't left yet. So you're looking at two different timelines, right? So USC and UCLA left in July of 2022. Here we are in May with nothing. But that's 10 months, right? When Oklahoma and Texas announced, did the Big 12 have their media deal figured out 10 months later?
No, but they did add 4 teams before anybody, but before.
Okay, but again, you're saying like, oh, well, the Big 12 can do this because they jumped the line. I think that's because their announcements of the teams leaving happened sooner.
Yeah, but they got a television contract before the Big 12, before the Pac-12 did, and the Pac-12 was
because
in
they
open negotiations
because they
before
knew their situation earlier.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is why hasn't the Pac-12 added more schools yet?
Because they're probably going to announce that, I would guess, at the same time that they're figuring out the media deal. And I think that factors into it in a greater capacity than what the Big 12 teams brought to their media deal. But also, those announcements got made very quickly, right? And I think Yormark deserves a lot of credit for that because I remember it was swift.
It was that was more Bob Bowlesby getting that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, regardless, the conference did well to act very quickly in that sense. But I think part of what the Pac-12 is looking at is whatever expansion teams they are considering. We suspect San Diego State is. We know, everyone knows, the worst kept secret. San Diego State is a top candidate there. I think SMU is probably a clear number 2 if they're going to stay at 12 teams, which I suspect that they will. But that is going into a television market that you just took a major hit with, losing Los Angeles and San Diego State, and then entering a new television market. And I wonder if George Kliavkoff isn't factoring that into the media rights negotiations, and if that isn't a complicating factor for how much money companies are going to be willing to pay, is where what markets you're able to tap into, what demographics you can hit, and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a little bit more complicated than you make it out to be.
Yeah, I'm just with the Mexico thing. My point is the ability to put on big events in an untapped market that does have an interest in Americans, more, I guess, Americanized sports. Like Latin America, basketball connections there. Obviously, Europe, it's a big connection, but Latin America, very big basketball connection. Baseball as well. I'm sure they play baseball games. They'll play baseball games down there. Softball, things like Mexico's softball team is, I think, I'm not sure they won the gold. They might have. But
I don't remember.
they were obviously very good too. So the Big 12 being based in Texas, potentially picking up Arizona, going to that market, I just think it is another one of those progressive moves that kind of fits with the ideology of an Arizona and kind of what you would like to do.
I think it's a good move from the conference because I think it's a new, exciting, potentially enterprise and something that you should always be looking to do, right? If you're not growing, then you're probably regressing.
But here's the problem.
As
the Pac-12 can't focus, and I know it's not their fault, but they cannot focus on growth right now because they're stuck in television purgatory, for lack of a better.
But you think that the announcement of a neutral site game in Mexico City is going to make Arizona turn and look
no,
the Big 12 is radically more appealing.
But it's another factor in like that. Wow, they are going to be playing games in a different country. That country is also an hour away from where our campus is. Arizona, if the Arizona goes to the Big 12, that is probably like school number 1 or 2 that I'm thinking about playing games in Mexico because of especially basketball. And also football too, because it's not like.
I see it as just like it's a cool neutral site opportunity. Like they've been playing neutral site games in Portland. They've been doing them in Maui.
Arizona football playing in Mexico is very good publicity for a program that is trying to get publicity. And you know what? It's a different, because here's the thing. We're not going to be like just Arizona home games. I know the excitement's up, but this is not going to be some just unbelievably packed crowd for Arizona football home games.
If they get good again, they will pack the place.
Yes, but in these, in the stages of trying to get back to a semblance of relevance, they're kind of taking a very actually slow paced. It looks like ascension.
Well, you have to. That is something with Arizona. That's what.
Yes, but it'd be great. It's Arizona. Big 12's Mexico football game of the year is going to be TCU versus Arizona. In Mexico City. That is very good. That is good publicity.
But they haven't announced that football is going there yet. They announced that
basketball.
Well,
yes, they have. No, yes, but
so they're going to play football games there too.
Football and basketball. Football and basketball are both going to be.
Again, I think a fun, cool idea. I don't think it's Earth moving here.
I'm not positing that's earth moving. I just think it's another one of those things that you.
Well, you're saying that it's a way to significantly sweeten the pot for Arizona to go to the Big 12, and that they would legitimately consider it more because they could go play in Mexico City.
Why wouldn't you though? Why wouldn't you say, hey, this is something that they're offering?
Because it's a fun, cool opportunity, but it's not radically shifting the calculus that we've talked about for the last several months on realignment.
But it is another example of how the Big 12 conference is in a much more organized, better position with better leadership than the Pac-12 is. I think that's been probably exhibited throughout the entire process. Look. I don't want to relitigate this, but let's be honest about you got officials leaving. You've got George Kliavkoff's right hand man.
Hold on. Pac-12 refs leaving the conference is the greatest thing to happen.
They're terrible as it is. I thought the same thing too. I was like, why are these guys leaving? This is awful. It's terrible. It's not like the television news cycle has been kind to them. Let's be honest. Brett Yormark kind of pants George Kliavkoff with jumping the line and getting in front of them. And also George Kliavkoff.
You can't say that until the Pac-12 media deal actually arrives.
George Kliavkoff thinking that the Big Ten media rights deal was going to rub off on the Pac-12 is one of the most gross miscalculations that we have seen from a college football executive.
But this is all just a PR and perception discussion.
It's not though.
We don't have a media deal. Of course it is.
Fine. I'll go to the actual reporting from Andrew Marchand. They had a deal on the table similar to the Big 12's that has since been revoked.
Okay. But hold on. Until we actually see what the deal is and how much it is worth, you cannot render final judgment on George Kliavkoff.
But also, okay, fine. Stuart Mandel's sure. I'm not saying final judgment, but Stuart Mandel's reporting.
Well, but that's what no.
Stuart Mandel saying the Pac-12 folks were overly optimistic shows that they are missing expectations. We keep hearing about these deadlines that they would like to meet, and they keep getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And look, it might be coming from media folks, but if Adam Rittenberg goes on national radio, which I worked on, and says, and this is before the NCAA tournament, and says in 6 weeks, if the Pac-12 does not have a TV deal, that's pretty alarming. And it's been past 6 weeks since that happened.
The level of concern outside the Pac-12 is much higher than the level of concern inside the Pac-12.
That's the public face. That's the concern vibes they're putting out there. But let's be honest about it. There is nothing tangible right now that we can point to. It's like, that's my point. Is if George Kliavkoff, let's say he pulls a rabbit out of that hat here, which I don't think is impossible, but I also don't. Hold on. Let me make the point. If he were to surpass the Big 12 deal, even by just a couple $1 million a year after this entire process, wouldn't George Kliavkoff look like a genius? Oh my God, yeah. But the question is, until you have the deal, hold on. Yeah. But I mean, if Jessica Alba walked through the door and wanted to be, like my wife, wouldn't it be like, wow, Josh really? Yes. Yeah. But there's no indication that Jessica Alba's coming through that door. There has been zero indication except what the Pac-12 presidents have said. We think we'll match the Big 12 and we might get over it. What indication has there been from any reporting besides what those folks are saying that makes that a reality? The deadlines being pushed back repeatedly, Kliavkoff's right-hand man in negotiations leaving does not paint that picture. And the reporting that the CW, the guy who still wanted to help finish the deal, by the way, he's leaving the conference in the middle of a TV negotiation. What was the guy's name? Why does it matter what his name is? Because you know nothing about the guy and you're assuming what his motives are, and you're assuming that he's leaving the league in the middle of their television. How do you know he didn't want to leave 6 months ago? He might
How do you
have.
know
but
he hasn't?
then
How do you
why
know he
is
doesn't have
hold on.
different career
If
interests?
this guy wanted to leave 6 months ago, why is he involved in television negotiation? That's not a guy I'd put in my television negotiation.
I'm just saying,
That
like,
wouldn't make any
people
sense.
move jobs all the time. If he really wanted to get out of there,
just look at what's happening surrounding the situation. If we're like it's coming to a head in May, then that means it's reaching a point where it's going to come to a head because they have not been in good enough conversations about their media contract. And once again, they might pull the rabbit out of the hat. But what indication has there been that's going to happen? We had all the presidents out there a couple weeks ago saying, we're getting close. We're getting close. You know, we're not thinking about the Big 12. And then a week later, Stuart Mandel, whose reporting has been very well sourced in the Pac-12, says they were overly optimistic. And they look at a bunch of assholes being out there saying that stuff. And it's kind of embarrassing. And they've given Kliavkoff all this time, and he has not yet delivered. And so I don't think it's wrong to posit that he might not deliver. He might not deliver the goods. I don't think it's wrong to say
Kirby Smart didn't win a national championship early in his tenure. Does that mean he was never capable of doing so? No, I think we've seen that that's not the case. There's a difference between.
But where are the indications that it wasn't going to happen for him?
Right,
I mean, his first championship game, they were winning the entire game.
But again, when he first got to Georgia, if he didn't win in the first couple of years, does that mean he wasn't able to do it? There's a difference between can't and have not yet.
Sure,
those are two completely different ways of framing.
If you go back and you read what Crow said from Arizona State, saying that we'll see the offer when it gets here. It's like they have not had that tangible offer yet that I feel like is like the bedrock of what they're now. At least at that point, it might now, but it does not. Did not feel like they had like a tangible offer that was the bedrock of negotiation at that point. And so, look, I know I'm a Big 12 guy, but I think there is, it's May 2nd now. It's okay to have a healthy amount of skepticism about what's happening in the league and say that as far as leadership's gone and getting things done, the Big 12 has been like leaps and bounds ahead of what Pac-12 leadership has been able to accomplish. And I'm not saying that the Pac-12 leadership was in a bigger hole. They were in a massive hole. Larry Scott did horrible things for that conference. Nothing good. He dug them in a hole. But the recovery for the Big 12 has been a lot faster than I thought it would, to be quite honest. So I'm just saying, you
thought when Texas and Oklahoma announced they were leaving in, what was that, July of 2021?
Yes.
That 18 months later, over 18 months later, almost 2 years later, there would be no media deal and no expansion.
I was afraid I wasn't, Spencer. I was afraid I wasn't going to have two jobs. Sirius XM, I was the Big 12 Today producer, and I'd started this podcast in October 2020, and that's why I've been so out there being like, look, folks, I know a lot of you Big 12 fans would have crap in the Pac-12, but be sympathetic. We were in their shoes a while ago. The anxiety of it all, it really sucks.
I don't think that message has gotten home yet.
No, it certainly is not. And I have been told, hey, screw those guys. And like, I'm just telling you, it's not the way I see it because of the way that I worked and whatnot. But the recovery was a lot faster. And, look at the Big 12 now. Like, nobody's wondering where the Big 12
was
going.
The timeline from when Oklahoma and Texas announced they were leaving to when expansion teams had been finalized and a media deal was signed?
Leave a month and a half for expansion teams. And then I guess, what was it? So it was 2021 when they had
I believe it was July 2021 or June 2020. It was summer 2021.
Right. So they had the announcement in August of new teams, I believe, joining the league.
Okay.
And then the television contract came in, let's see.
What was it? October?
Was it 2021 or 2022, right? Last year.
Yeah, it was this past fall.
So yeah, we're
talking from the time that the two teams announced they were leaving.
But the television contract was expiring faster.
Over 365 days to when you had expansion teams and when you had a deal. And yet you're saying the Pac-12 is doing things slower, and it hasn't even been 365 days since you announced.
But also, they could have added Big 12 schools when they had the chance, and they very stupidly.
That's a different conversation.
But they let the president of one of their biggest brands be like, "Nah, we're good. We're not going to do it." Like they let the USC president drive the ship on that, and it's
because
you have to kind of read
presidents
the room.
Presidents drive.
You have to read the room, and be like, all right, are we all on board with that? Like, I'm not sure. Like that's the right.
Well,
way
first
to
of all, USC's president was not the only one in that room saying no, we don't need to expand.
It's short-sighted is what I'm saying.
But second of all,
short-sighted.
George Kliavkoff cannot just go add teams at will.
Right, he cannot. But what I'm saying is
because
that
the presidents have to sign off.
Right, and they should have read the room and seen what was. I mean, the fact that the Big 12 lost Oklahoma and Texas first, and is now beating down the door of the Pac-12 and might get their schools, and it's a very real possibility they might get some of their schools once again.
I doubt it.
Yeah, okay, you can doubt it all you want to, but it is a real possibility. We have the AD of San Diego State, not a Pac-12 school, but also the president of
future Pac-12
Arizona.
school.
The president of Arizona said Lubbock is a short drive away. We're going to be okay. Like, it's all on the table at this point. And San Diego State said it's going to be the Big 12 or the Pac-12. How did we get here? Proactive leadership from the Big 12. Proactive.
Yeah,
now, the television contract closing
I don't
out
disagree with that.
has hurt them, but they're up against it now. They are very much up against it.
Yeah, they are, but I don't think we're in a stage where, number one, anything has changed, or number two, it's dramatic panic time, right? I think that, first of all, the Pac-12 on the PR front has made no effort to publicly fight that campaign, and they have let things fester, right? They put
the presidents out there, and then they were embarrassed a week later.
Right, exactly, right. And they let presidents just go out, say things at will and whatnot, and there was no coordinated effort on that front because they do not care. Because
that was cool. No, I disagree with that. That was coordinated. Those all three were giving interviews basically simultaneously.
Yeah. But I don't think that really came from the Pac-12 front office, is what I'm saying.
I would say it came from the schools and the office together, but also maybe,
too, the Pac-12 front office and George Kliavkoff have been completely silent throughout this entire process, right?
Sure.
And if people want to argue that that's a mistake because of the perception it takes to your conference, I will get in your camp and agree with you on that front. But the other side of the coin that you have introduced throughout our discussion today, and we didn't get to one of the topics that we were most excited to talk about. Week. We'll have to just get into that next week and whatnot. That, George Kliavkoff has been completely worked here. I don't know how you can say that just because there's no indication that the deal is going to be good. There's no indication the deal could surpass the Big 12 the way the presidents are saying. But that is all speculative still.
No, it's not. Why are we waiting? Why are we in May then? Why are we sitting here?
Have the deal
so you think this is happening independent of what happened to the Big 12? You think no matter what happened, we would have ended up at this spot right now? We're in the Pac-12? In the Big 12, do you think the Big 12 and the Pac-12 television deals are separate entities? That one did not impact the other?
I don't think the Pac-12 was sitting around worried about what the Big 12 was going to do. I think
right, because they were worried about what the Big 10 was getting and saying we can get more, and they were wrong. They were completely wrong.
Well, once you lost USC and UCLA, I doubt George Kliavkoff would have thought the same thing.
Right, but you lost USC and UCLA, and
which you were going to lose.
And then the Big 10 television deal happens after that. And so at that point, that is when you have to understand, like, okay, this is where we are. We should take a Big 12 type deal, which they didn't at the time. Right, so they know USC and UCLA are leaving. Then the new Big 10 TV deal gets announced. And at that point, you know who is in your conference. At that point, they had a standing offer from ESPN, same dollar amount as the Big 12 got. They said, no, we just saw the Big 10 get this much. And for some reason, they thought they were the Big 10 and waited. There's a reason why Brett Yormark jumped for the security. It's because he knows what this conference is and what it's not.
Patience is virtue, my friend.
This is like you worked yourself into patience kind of situation, I think. That's the way I see it. And look,
I think the most notoriously patient guy of all time is Yoda, and I think he's pretty smart.
Well, he is fictional. This is a real television contract negotiation that is happening in real time. So Yoda can kick rocks unless he's going to show up in that room and, use the Force.
I don't know if he can kick rocks anymore. He's dead. He's just a Force.
He's dead, but he, unless he can, Obi-Wan and in the first Star Wars, and he's not the George you're looking for. It's going to be a difficult challenge. I'm just saying, look, you have to be fair. You have been dismissive of the idea that Big 12 schools would join.
That Pac-12 schools would join the Big 12. Yes, and because they themselves have been dismissive of that idea.
They have not been dismissive. They once again, they will say it publicly, but when Arizona's president's like, we kicked that one around, sure. It's like, yeah, no shit, you have. You have to be.
Then why didn't they go?
Because why would you wait if you can leverage 2 offers? Why would you wait? Why would you jump early?
I don't think
There's
Arizona is
no
going to sit
reason.
there and be in a major power.
There's
They're not a
no
power.
reason to jump
Arizona's not a
early.
power broker in the Pac-12.
But they can still remain in the conference they've been in for a while. Look, here's the thing. Why would you leave the league if you have not fully seen what you're
The only way
now, here's the thing. I
any
think they've got plenty of reason to leave at this
the
point.
only way I see any Pac-12 schools winding up in the Big 12 is if the Pac-12 completely folds and fails to get a television deal.
Because the television offer sucks. No, I don't think it's completely folds. No.
They would have to.
What if it's $10 million gap
then? Whatsoever.
A $10 million gap. We're just going to sit there and be okay with that? Come on now.
You think it's going to be a $10 million gap?
I mean, where's the indication it's not?
Where's the indication that it is?
Because they don't have a television. They've got nothing yet.
You're still just saying like, oh, it could be involved.
This. The CW has live golf. That's the only sport they've got on there is live golf.
This whole exercise about it is just Schrodinger's cat.
What? No, it's not. No, this is this.
It is. You don't know what the deal is till you open the box. You don't know if the cat is alive or dead.
But we're just going to blindfold ourselves and it's like the house is burning and we're like, it could still be okay. The fire department might get here in time. And it's like, look, you might save half the house. Sure, you might save half the house, but you can't tell me it's like.
But you're saying it is definitive. The Pac-12.
No, I'm not saying definitive. I'm just saying if you follow the breadcrumbs, how is this thing trending in a positive direction for the Pac-12? We are sitting here on May 2nd with no television deal.
Okay.
Did you think we'd be at May 2nd with no television deal?
No.
But
the Pac-12
doesn't worry you at all.
The Pac-12 doesn't seem worried. So I am not particularly.
They're gonna come out and be like, "We're panicking." Oh no, we're panicking.
No, I don't think you would have said that. I don't think you would have seen the number of statements over the last several months saying that we want to be in the Pac-12, we don't want to be in the Big 12. We're confident we're going to get a deal from so many different individuals. I don't think they'd be saying that if they didn't actually think that.
Here's what I'm saying, and I've told you this before. Why would you come out and say we're confident we're getting a deal if you're so confident? Just announce the deal.
Because they're still working out the deal, and they clearly have things that are in it or part of the negotiation.
Right. This is what I'm saying is
that are not to all of their liking. Here's the thing. My level of concern for the Pac-12 being able to get a deal has not really diminished over the last several months. My confidence in them being able to get a great deal and as good as they are saying has diminished over the last several months, because if it were that easy, yeah, maybe they'd have it. But there are also so many complicating factors in a negotiation like this with information that we are not privy to. Like, we can go off of these little breadcrumbs here and there, but that's not most of the sandwich, which is the conversation.
I just think the idea that they're going to pop up with some fantastic ESPN, Fox, Amazon deal that pays every single school $27 million a year is that's the best case scenario. And I have not seen any indication that's going to be the case.
No, I think it's probably just the way they want it.
I think it's just the way they want it.
I don't think
don't pull it. They've got us right where they want them.
I don't think Pac-12 presidents or frankly George Kliavkoff at this point. I don't care. I don't think they care what you think. I don't think they care what I think. I don't think they care what anybody thinks.
Right, but if they care what we think, it doesn't really matter. The fact that they all went out publicly, well, I think they do actually care what we think, because publicly they wanted to change the narrative a few weeks ago. And all the presidents came out.
They're towing the water in it, and then they're
Three presidents came out. Three presidents came out and talked about the benefits of staying in the Pac-12, how close they were to a deal, and how much they were going to like the numbers they saw. And then a week later, Stuart Mandel says a deadline's been pushed back, and they were overly optimistic. It was a week later. So how does that fit any narrative about, things are looking great?
I don't think that things are looking great.
They're not looking great.
I think you paint a darker picture than I do. By the way, our boss Zach Blackerby is going to publicly scold us, most likely, for the length of today's show.
It's a great conversation. The folks will enjoy. This is what they want. This is the conversation they want. And look, you and I are going to have this out. We have to do this again in 24 hours. Ironically enough, you have to do the same conversation 24 hours later. But and this is, once again, I'm not trying to diminish the Pac-12, and I know you're a Pac-12
guy. You had me fooled on that one.
But I just think we have to be honest about where they are. This is not me trying to wreck the league. I'm not trying to do that. There's at least a party. I'm just saying, let's be honest. And also, does it feel good to stick it to a guy who said we haven't decided if we're going shopping there yet? Yeah, sure it does. Because he looks like a clown right now for saying that about the Big 12 schools. But do I have any ill will towards Spencer? You and I get along. I've got no ill will towards you or anybody who's a Pac-12 fan, because guess what? Much like Iowa State fans or West Virginia fans, you all love your schools and just want to see your teams compete at the highest level, which I think you all deserve a shot to. The problem is this game is not fair anymore, and it sucks to say that. It really is the hard part about all of this. We should probably talk about
that element on tomorrow's show, because that's a whole other conversation. That we are all, you know, fans of different teams in these conferences here. We're all competing for a bronze medal at some level, right?
We are all competing at the end of the day to get our asses kicked by Ohio State, by Georgia, by Alabama. I mean, we're all lining up to do that. You are correct.
That's true. We might have to make that our tease for tomorrow's show.
Yeah. All right, Spencer, where can the folks find you and your work and all of its variety?
I am at Smalls_55 on Twitter, and I host Locked On Pac-12 and Locked On Ducks Monday through Friday, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Josh, of course, Locked On Big 12, same sort of deal. It's always a blast. We went super long today.
Yeah, 40 minutes, man. At LO Big 12 on Twitter. You guys can find me at @JoshNeighbors_. Get the show wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Both of these shows. All right, Spencer, we'll do it again next week.
We shall.